All right, Bloodstream listeners, I'm joined now by Tom Bartlett. He is a person living with myasthenia gravis. I knew I was probably going to
Very
mess that up,
good.
Tom, but I had to go
No,
for it
you're not the
anyway.
first one.
I'm
Yeah,
sure I'm not. I'm sure I'm
right.
not. And we'll
Yeah.
talk a little about how we connected and met. But I want to highlight this is MG Awareness Month. So for the listeners here who will be largely unaware of MG, what is it and what's your experience with it been like? Then we'll talk a little bit about what the Awareness Month is all about.
Okay, so myasthenia gravis is a neuromuscular disease. It was actually identified back in the late 1600s. And then it was 2017 when the first FDA-approved therapy came out.
A little bit of a timeline there.
A little bit. And so in the rare disease space, this is not unusual.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that we learn about living with a rare disease. So myasthenia gravis affects the way our muscles function. So simply put, our brains will send a signal down to what's called a neuromuscular junction to send a chemical over to receptors on our muscles. Okay, great. We don't even know this is happening. All the conversations we're having, our mouths moving, all of that, it's all happening. So at the muscle, there are receptors that receive this chemical. And I call them baseball mitts.
Okay.
And there are thousands and thousands of baseball mitts out there trying to catch the chemical to do what the brain says. Except those with myasthenia gravis, our antibodies are killing those receptors. And that is the terminology that's typically used. Our body is killing the receptors on our muscles to receive a signal to do something.
Got it. Okay. So then how did you come to be diagnosed? Were you having an uptick in issues, or how did that happen?
Yeah, and what you find is, it's a great question, because what you find, most people don't know they are sick with myasthenia gravis or MG, and they just continue to live their life not feeling great, weak, fatigued. Things just don't function properly. Before where I am now, I was an athlete for most of my life. All the way up until when I got diagnosed in my late 50s. I was still playing in high-level tennis tournaments. I actually still played baseball,
Wow.
like real baseball, hardball.
In your 50s?
Yeah.
Oh, we need a whole nother podcast session to talk about that. Okay.
Played in tournaments in Arizona, played in tournaments out in Vegas, and it was a ball.
Wow.
And if you think of it, and I was a golfer too. So I was a 6 handicap golfer. So things like you would think about timing is incredibly important, the nuances of the functioning of a muscle.
Right.
So what I found is I was playing in a tennis tournament, and things just weren't working quite right. And to the extent I was playing in the third match of the day, it's 95 degrees out, and I used to do it all the time, but I could not physically move. Ball would come over the net, didn't move, did not move. We lost. I was playing in a doubles tournament. I lost. And I was like, okay, dehydrated, whatever.
Sure.
Went on a business trip the following Monday, and wake up on a Tuesday morning, look in the mirror, my right eye is pointing straight up.
Whoa.
And my right eyelid is covering half my eye. But, I did this my whole life. And I'm like, okay, that's odd. But I have an appointment at 9:00, and I was in New York City. Trying to get around New York City, you got to plan time, and my brain is working and functioning this way. My eye is off, but okay, we'll call the doctors, and then my PCP. They're like, "Can you come in right away?" I'm like, "No, I got things to do." So they're like, "Come in as soon as you can." So the following Thursday, I went in. And they're looking at me and they're going, "No, Tom, your eye is not where it's supposed to be." And 5 minutes later, she called in the head of the practice. And so this is my initiation into the world of myasthenia gravis. They know something's wrong. They actually did an MRI to exclude things, but they came back after a blood test and said, "Tom, you have myasthenia gravis." And
What the heck is
You
that,
know,
right?
exactly. And like you, struggle to pronounce it.
Right,
All
right.
right, got to go learn about it. And then, you know, following the diagnosis, it wasn't like, oh, you're diagnosed, you're sick, you must have these symptoms. I saw a neurologist, one of the best in the world for MG, based here in Boston, and she told me it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what it started to happening. So my body was really reacting. The more you move, more you try to use your muscles, the more your body is killing the receptors on the muscles.
Okay.
So folks would say, well, why don't you exercise? It's
Right.
counterproductive.
Hmm.
Can't exercise. Well, you can try, but you have to be very cognizant of what you're doing.
So what are you doing to manage and live your best life with MG?
Smile a lot.
Hmm.
Education is keen for me. I had to resign from my position after being diagnosed for 2 years, and it was because I was declining.
What were you doing?
I worked as the head of global science for a life science consulting firm.
Hmm. Okay.
And what we did is to compress time.
How
So
so?
we worked with technology to reduce time to outcomes so that a new therapy could be brought to market sooner.
And you had to resign from that post.
Yep. Because I could no longer function as the head of global sales, I reported directly to the CEO as a neurologist.
Hmm.
And when I told him, I said, Ari, I have myasthenia. And he goes, geez, Tom, I'm really sorry.
So wait,
That crushed me.
he's a neurologist and it just is,
Neuroscientist.
or
He's a
excuse me, he's a
neuroscientist.
neuroscientist and that is coincidental to your having MG.
Yep.
Wow, you just happen to be working in this world and working for this
Yep.
Wow, how
Yep.
unusual.
And I worked in science, and that our job and my job was to communicate with chief medical officers, chief technology officers, CEOs, to say you should bring our company in to help you reduce time
Yeah.
using technology, meaning like computational technology, etc., AI, and you can take that drug you're looking to bring to market and reduce that time maybe down by 2 years, 3 years. And that's what
Wow.
we did really, really well. But I couldn't do that anymore. I was fatigue just crushed me. I would lay down for 3 hours in the afternoon, just lay down like a boat anchor. Couldn't move. So that was my initiation into this world.
You know, there's so much about living with hemophilia that from the little I understand about MG, feels relatable in the
Mhm.
framework of living with an invisible disease, right?
Yeah.
People to look
Yeah.
at you and if they know your history or you got baseball trophies in your office or whatever, little would they know that,
Look behind me.
I was saying that as just as a happenstance, but he actually literally does.
That home plate was my induction into the Hall of Fame of the league that I played in for 20 years.
Wow. Okay. 20-year Hall of Famer. How would someone know that you're just sitting like an anchor feeling fatigued? And, you know,
Right.
I'm a tall guy who moves with a purpose. How would anyone
Yeah.
know the extraordinary amounts of pain going on in my ankles as I move around?
Yep.
How do you, or how have you in the last few years kind of coped with that on a personal level and to whatever degree you needed to communicate it with people effectively to let them know, look, I'm not being lazy. It's not that I don't care. It's not that I'm backing out. I need to take a break. How do you communicate about that with people, and how have you coped with this transition personally?
Well, we need like 2 hours.
Yeah, in the next 3 minutes,
Right.
Tom, answer this
Right.
giant
Right.
question.
But it's the pinnacle of all questions, right? How do you cope? And anybody who's diagnosed with a rare disease, incurable, I hate treatable, yes, but it doesn't mean that, oh, you're going to feel great. It means that you're not going to decline where you may not be here anymore.
Mm.
And so how do you cope? There are a lot of dark days.
Mm.
But for me, coping was, how do I help? How do I involve myself into this community? I have a unique background that from a technology standpoint, I worked at Apple for 18 years. I worked for Dell, and technology was my thing.
Hmm.
Then I applied it to science, working at the consulting firm. That was my thing. So how do I apply that to help within the community itself? So I've joined organizations. I do not so much public speaking, but things like this. I write for the Rare Disease Advisor, what it's like to live with the disease of MG. I don't sugarcoat things, and I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have a smile, but this is not good.
Yeah.
I might be here, but it's not good. So coping for me is to doing what I can to help other people along the way, answer questions for them, and mostly it's about, have you had this experience? And because it is rare, they can't go to anybody else. There's maybe 50 or 60,000 people in the United States that are diagnosed with MG. Sounds like a lot in some cases, where there's only 200 cases globally. I've spoken to folks like that.
Yeah, sure.
But it's still, like you, never heard of it.
You won't be bumping into somebody with it happenstancely. It's
Right.
rare enough that, even at a population size of 50,000, you have to be very intentional and seek out other people, seek out the specialists. To your point, it's so interesting to learn about your background. I didn't know this coming into the conversation, and we certainly could talk for hours. I have no doubt, and hope to. I hope there's some things we'll be working on together down the road. But as a final thought for now, in the spirit of MG Awareness Month, what is top of mind for you? What do you want to educate people about? What message are you pushing out there during MG Awareness Month this year?
For MG awareness, it's about understanding the people who are living with it, and then translating that into research. So how do we bring this to a community that is unaware, that will be passionate enough to want to contribute, in whether it's monetarily or within their specialty, to do research on MG. We're lucky. We're one of the 5% that has a therapy that's FDA approved. Most rare disease don't have that. So we're lucky. So let's take that efforts and continue to drive the industry and take what we've learned. And education is it's critical. So the awareness is to educate folks out there, and let them know there are folks like me. And even though we look great, life can be pretty daunting at times, and could be in the same day. Who knows how I'm going to feel at 5 o'clock today? So let's go out and learn about it, and be compassionate for those who have it.
June is Myasthenia Gravis, or MG Awareness Month. Let's use it to spread education and compassion. I like that, Tom. I like you. I'm glad I know you, and thanks for coming on BloodStream today.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.